he was in a very poor state of health. He had significant heart disease, and I think ultimately that is what resulted in his death.
How does a Hollywood legend vanish only to resurface in death? Gene Hackman ruled the screen for decades, then walked away in 2004. No interviews, no comebacks, just silence. He and his wife, Betsy Arakawa, lived in seclusion in Santa Fe, New Mexico. On February 26, 2025, both were found dead in their home. No forced entry, no struggle. A minor gas leak was detected but deemed non-lethal. What happened in their final days? Why had no one heard from them for weeks? What secrets do newly surfaced estate documents reveal? Let's explore this in detail. What we know for certain is that Hackman had spent his later years in near total isolation. Unlike many of his Hollywood contemporaries, he never returned for a cameo, never attended industry reunions, and never gave nostalgic interviews about his greatest roles. For all intents and purposes, he had vanished from public life. Yet, even in his reclusion, his name continued to spark intrigue. Fans and journalists alike tried to piece together his life after Hollywood, but Hackman made sure that there were no loose ends to pull on, or so it seemed. The recent estate filings, which surfaced following his passing, revealed a level of planning and preparation that few had expected. Over the years, Hackman had made deliberate moves to separate himself not just from Hollywood, but from any future obligations or speculation about his life. His financial records show that he consolidated assets, selling off multiple properties, minimizing public ties to his wealth, and ensuring that his estate was structured in a way that left little room for external scrutiny. It is clear that Hackman didn't just step away from acting, he orchestrated his own disappearance. His Santa Fe home, where he and his wife spent their final years, was more than just a retirement getaway. The 12-acre property was carefully chosen to shield them from prying eyes, built to offer security, silence, and an unbroken retreat from the world that once celebrated him. For years, this worked. He lived without the constant invasion of cameras or journalists attempting to document his every move. The only glimpses of Hackman came from occasional sightings in Santa Fe, often riding his bicycle, looking like any other elderly resident enjoying a quiet life. But those sightings became less frequent in recent years, and as his health declined, it became apparent that he was preparing for the inevitable. That is where the estate documents come into play. They show that Hackman had meticulously planned his affairs, ensuring that his estate would be handled privately and efficiently. But what no one expected was that these records would contain details that could potentially change everything we thought we knew about his final years. Legal analysts reviewing these documents found that Hackman had restructured his holdings multiple times, ensuring that no one outside of his immediate circle would have access to the finer details of his wealth, assets, or last wishes. While this is not entirely uncommon for high-profile individuals, what stood out was how carefully Hackman had distanced himself from any Hollywood-related dealings. Most retired actors still have some lingering connection to the industry, whether through royalties, licensing deals, or the occasional guest appearance. Hackman, however, had severed all ties completely. His estate records show that he had refused numerous offers for film projects, biography deals, and even high-paying commercial work that could have easily made him millions. This was not the behavior of someone who was merely taking a break from Hollywood. It was the action of someone who never wanted to be found in that world again. And yet, despite his best efforts, the details of his final days remain murky. The official reports confirm that there were no external injuries, and initial toxicology screenings showed no immediate signs of poisoning or overdose. However, investigators have not ruled out all possibilities, as a full examination is still underway. While the gas leak detected on the property was deemed minor, questions remain. Was it part of a larger issue? Or was it simply a coincidence? Adding to the mystery is the fact that the couple had not been in contact with anyone for weeks prior to being found. Those who knew them described them as private, but not entirely cut off. So why had no one heard from them in so long? These questions, along with the newly uncovered estate documents, have led to speculation that Hackman may have been making arrangements for his legacy long before his passing. But what exactly was he planning? What had he seen in Hollywood that made him want to escape so completely? And most importantly, why were certain details of his estate only coming to light now? As investigators continue to analyze the circumstances surrounding Hackman's death, the world is left to reflect on the man he was. A legend on screen, a private figure off screen, and now, even in his passing, a subject of mystery. His ability to disappear was impressive, but it may be that the biggest revelation about his life is yet to come. In the days following the shocking discovery of Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa's bodies in their Santa Fe home, new details have begun to emerge, shedding light on the final chapter of his life. What was once a mystery fueled by speculation is now becoming clearer. Hackman, known for his fiercely guarded privacy, had spent his last years meticulously organizing his affairs, ensuring that when his time came there would be no chaos, no unanswered questions, only the legacy he had carefully shaped. Yet, even in death, his name has resurfaced, and with it, the unearthing of legal and financial documents that reveal more about his disappearance from public life than ever before. Authorities were quick to state that no signs of foul play were found at the scene, yet there was something unsettling about how everything had unfolded. The couple had not been seen or heard from for weeks before the discovery, prompting speculation about how long they had been deceased before anyone noticed. Hackman's pacemaker record suggests that he passed away around February 17, 2025, 9 days before their bodies were found. The condition of the remains indicated that time had passed before authorities were alerted. A minor gas leak was detected in the home, leading to early suspicions that carbon monoxide poisoning may have played a role. However, investigators later ruled this out as the levels were not lethal enough to be considered the cause of death. With autopsy and toxicology reports still pending, many are left wondering what truly happened inside Hackman's estate in his final days. Was this simply a tragic case of natural causes, or was there something more to the story? Even as the investigation continues, another layer to Hackman's story has emerged: his estate records. These legal and financial documents, now under review, have uncovered the extent of his meticulous planning. It is well known that Hackman was a man who valued control over his own life and career, and that extended into his estate planning. Decades before his passing, Hackman had taken careful steps to ensure that his financial affairs remained airtight. Unlike many celebrities whose estates become the subject of legal battles, Hackman had structured his holdings in a way that left no room for ambiguity. The records indicate that he updated his legal and financial arrangements multiple times in the years leading up to his death, consolidating assets, selling off unnecessary properties, and minimizing any external control over his wealth. One of the more intriguing details that has come to light is how Hackman's estate will be distributed. Given that he was married to Betsy Arakawa, who did not have children of her own, questions have arisen about the inheritance process under simultaneous death laws. Since both Hackman and Arakawa passed away together, the legal implications could affect how his estate is handled. His 3 children from his first marriage are expected to be the primary beneficiaries, but the process may not be as straightforward as expected. Some estate law experts believe that there could be complexities involved, particularly with any assets or trusts that were shared between Hackman and Arakawa. Even in his final years, Hackman remained a man of precision and discretion. His last public sightings had become increasingly rare, with friends noting that he had become more reclusive and homebound as time went on. Unlike earlier in his retirement, when he was occasionally seen cycling around Santa Fe or visiting local shops, his presence had become almost non-existent in recent years. Those who knew him say that his health had been declining, though he never spoke publicly about his condition. Reports of a heart procedure in 2009 had fueled speculation that he had ongoing cardiac issues, which could have contributed to his withdrawal from public life. Hackman's commitment to privacy was absolute, a rarity in Hollywood. Unlike other retired actors who occasionally returned for interviews, honorary awards, or nostalgic reunions, Hackman never entertained the idea of a comeback. Not once did he step onto a red carpet, appear in a documentary, or give an in-depth retrospective about his career. The closest he came was in 2011, when a journalist managed to get a brief interview with him about his post-Hollywood life. Even then, Hackman kept it simple. He had no regrets about leaving, no desire to return, and was happy to have left that world behind. But while Hackman himself may have been content to disappear, The newfound attention surrounding his estate ensures that he remains in the spotlight, even in death. His legacy as an actor remains undeniable. His performances in The French Connection, Unforgiven, The Conversation, and countless others solidified his place in film history. Yet in some ways, his greatest performance was the one he orchestrated in real life, his complete and total disappearance. Now, with the release of these legal documents and estate filings, a new perspective is forming. Hackman didn't just retire, he carefully removed himself from Hollywood's grasp, structuring his finances and estate in a way that made it almost impossible for the industry to reclaim any part of him. The legal measures he put in place ensured that his wealth, properties, and personal records remained under strict control. Despite all of this planning, there is one thing Hackman could not control: the public's fascination with him. His ability to disappear so effectively has only made people more curious. While many in Hollywood spend years chasing relevance, Hackman had spent just as much time ensuring he would never have to be part of that cycle again. The question now is, what other details remain hidden within his estate? Are there further financial arrangements or legal documents that could reveal even more about his final years? And as the investigation into his cause of death continues, will new findings alter the way we view the end of his life? What is clear is that Hackman's story is far from over. Even in death, he remains an enigma, a man who built his life on discipline, control, and the unwavering belief that he alone would decide how his story ended. With the investigation into Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa's passing still ongoing, more details continue to surface, details that only deepen the mystery surrounding their final days. While authorities have ruled out foul play and determined that the minor gas leak found in their home was not at lethal levels, unanswered questions remain. Hackman's pacemaker records suggest he passed away around February 17th, 9 days before the bodies were discovered, raising concerns about how long they had been left unnoticed. Toxicology and autopsy reports are still pending, leaving room for speculation about potential underlying health conditions that may have contributed to their deaths. In life, Hackman was a man who meticulously planned every aspect of his career and personal affairs. His estate records, which surfaced following his death, reflect this same level of preparation. The legal and financial documents confirm that Hackman had taken extensive steps to ensure his wealth and assets were managed exactly as he intended, leaving no room for disputes or speculation. Unlike many high-profile figures whose estates become tangled in legal battles, Hackman left behind a structure that prioritized privacy just as he had in life. One of the most talked-about aspects of his estate is the distribution of his wealth following the simultaneous passing of both Hackman and Arakawa. Estate law can be complex when spouses pass away at the same time, particularly when one partner has children from a previous marriage, as Hackman did. His 3 children from his first marriage are expected to be the primary beneficiaries. But given how meticulously Hackman managed his affairs, there is speculation about whether additional trusts, charitable donations, or undisclosed financial arrangements will come to light in the coming weeks. What stands out most about Hackman's estate is not just the financial planning, but the lengths he went to in order to distance himself from Hollywood's influence. While many retired actors continue to earn royalties, sign licensing agreements, or authorize documentaries about their careers, Hackman took the opposite approach. Estate filings indicate that he actively rejected opportunities to profit from his past work. Even in death, there are no records of pre-arranged licensing deals, no book contracts, and no documentary rights assigned to any production company. His control over his image remained absolute. This deliberate detachment from Hollywood aligns with Hackman's behavior in his final years. Those close to him noted that his reclusiveness intensified over time. He was once spotted riding his bicycle through Santa Fe or quietly visiting local stores, but as his health declined, these rare sightings became non-existent. Hackman's decision to isolate himself further may have been partly due to his declining health, but it also speaks to the calculated way he approached his legacy. He did not want to be part of the ongoing Hollywood nostalgia cycle. Despite his best efforts to maintain control over his story, his passing has reignited interest in his life and decisions. In some ways, this is inevitable. The way Hackman disappeared from Hollywood was almost unheard of for a man of his stature. Unlike his peers, many of whom continued acting well into their 80s and 90s, Hackman never made a single return to film or television. He never agreed to a farewell interview, never participated in retrospectives, and never attended the awards ceremonies that honored his past work. Even when The French Connection and Unforgiven were widely regarded as two of the greatest films of all time, Hackman was noticeably absent from public celebrations of their legacies. Some industry experts believe that Hackman saw Hollywood changing in a way that no longer aligned with the kind of storytelling he valued. Having built a career on raw, intense performances in films that prioritize depth over spectacle, perhaps he recognized that the industry was shifting towards something he no longer wanted to be a part of. The rise of superhero franchises, digital streaming dominance, and the ever-growing pressure on actors to maintain a public persona may have all contributed to his decision to leave and to never return. What makes Hackman's disappearance from Hollywood even more compelling is the fact that his absence only fueled the public's curiosity. While other retired actors occasionally resurface for interviews, Hackman did the opposite. The more he retreated, the more fascinated people became with how he had managed to vanish so completely. His passing has only intensified this interest, especially now that estate documents are revealing just how intentional his disappearance truly was. If anything, the recent findings from his estate prove that Hackman's departure from Hollywood was not just about retirement, it was about finality. He had made up his mind long before he walked away, and every financial move, every decision about his assets, and every rejection of Hollywood's attempts to pull him back reflected his unwavering commitment to leaving on his own terms. Now, as legal teams continue to process his estate, the world is left to wonder what other details may surface. Will more financial records reveal undisclosed donations or hidden trusts? Will personal writings or letters offer insight into his true thoughts about Hollywood in his later years? Or will the story of Gene Hackman remain exactly as he intended, one of controlled silence, with no loose ends for the world to unravel? With each new revelation about Gene Hackman's estate, it becomes clearer that his withdrawal from Hollywood was not just an impulsive decision, but a meticulously planned exit. The findings from his financial records, estate planning, and the legal complexities of his passing alongside Betsy Arakawa paint the picture of a man who knew exactly how he wanted to be remembered, or, more accurately, how he didn't want to be remembered. Even in death, Hackman ensured that his life remained private, untouched by the sensationalism that often follows legendary figures. His retreat from public life was nearly unprecedented. Many actors of his generation, from Clint Eastwood to Robert De Niro, remained active in the industry long after their prime. Even those who retired, like Sean Connery, occasionally made public statements or allowed their likeness to be used in tributes. Hackman, however, had no interest in such things. He not only stepped away from acting, but actively erased himself from Hollywood's nostalgia machine. He left no memoir, refused interviews, and declined lucrative offers to return for one final role. This level of detachment now raises important questions. Why did he go to such great lengths to disappear? Was it simply about maintaining his privacy, or did he view Hollywood in a way that made returning unthinkable? His last film, Welcome to Mooseport, was a light-hearted political comedy that did not align with the intense, dramatic performances that had defined his career. Could it be that Hackman saw this as a sign of where the industry was headed? One where the kinds of roles he was known for were no longer valued? Or was it something more personal, something he never intended for the public to understand? What is certain is that Hackman's estate was designed to prevent intrusion into his private affairs. While details of his financial holdings are still emerging, legal analysts have pointed out that his assets were structured in a way that made it difficult for outsiders to uncover information about his wealth. He was not a celebrity who sought to build a brand or capitalize on his past fame. He did not sign merchandising deals, did not license his likeness for future projects, and did not authorize documentaries about his career. Even now, there is no official biographical film in the works, something almost unheard of for an actor of his status. The simultaneous passing of Hackman and Arakawa has introduced further complexities regarding how his estate will be distributed. Legal experts have noted that while Hackman's 3 children are likely the primary beneficiaries, any jointly held assets between him and Arakawa may complicate the process. There are also speculations about whether undisclosed trusts or charitable donations will come to light in the coming weeks, though Hackman's known history suggests that any such decisions were made well in advance. What has surprised many observers is the lack of personal effects related to his career in his estate records. Unlike many retired actors who preserve memorabilia from their time in Hollywood, Hackman appears to have left behind very little in terms of sentimental keepsakes. There are no reports of film props, awards, or costumes being included in his estate filings. Some believe this was intentional, a final statement that his legacy was in his performances, not in physical objects. Even as these findings emerge, Hackman's legacy remains firmly intact. His performances in The French Connection, The Conversation, Unforgiven, and countless other classics have ensured that his name will never be forgotten. But what makes his story unique is that he did not contribute to shaping his own legacy. He did not engage in the typical rituals of retired actors, such as attending tributes, doing commentary for re-releases, or participating in documentaries. By walking away so completely, he left his career frozen in time, preserved exactly as it was when he left. There would be no late career missteps, no final projects that tarnished his reputation, and no overexposure that diminished the mystique of his greatest performances. Hackman's silence was, in itself, a statement, one that continues to leave people wondering about the man behind the roles. The revelation of these estate documents has brought Hackman back into the conversation, though not in the way the world expected. Instead of a celebrated return or a long-awaited interview, the public is left piecing together his final years through legal filings, financial transactions, and property records. His story is being told in reverse, not through his own words, but through the evidence of a life lived in deliberate solitude. As we learn more about the structure of his estate, the biggest mystery may not be about his finances or his legal arrangements, but rather about why he chose to orchestrate his disappearance with such precision. His ability to step away and never return is almost unheard of in Hollywood, an industry that rarely lets go of its icons. And yet, Hackman managed to slip away without any dramatic farewell, without any lingering attachments, and without any attempts to reclaim the spotlight. The more we uncover about Hackman's final years, the clearer it becomes that he did not simply retire, he removed himself entirely. His passing may have brought renewed attention to his legacy, but in many ways he remains just as elusive as ever. And perhaps that is exactly what he wanted. Even with everything we now know about Gene Hackman's carefully planned exit from Hollywood and his intensely private life in Santa Fe, some questions remain unanswered. His passing, alongside his wife Betsy Arakawa, has only deepened the mystery surrounding his final years. His estate records provide a glimpse into how he meticulously arranged his affairs, but they do not explain why he felt the need to retreat so completely. While many actors slow down and eventually step away from the spotlight, Hackman's departure was absolute. He did not just retire, he erased himself from public life with an intentionality that is almost unheard of. One of the most striking aspects of Hackman's disappearance from Hollywood was how disciplined he was in ensuring that he left no room for speculation about a return. Unlike many actors who retire only to be lured back by a compelling script or a major paycheck, Hackman's decision was final. He never entertained the idea of a comeback, not even for a brief appearance. In the years following his retirement, he was offered roles that could have defined an entirely new chapter of his career. Directors wanted him for dramatic lead roles, for mentor figures, even for smaller cameo appearances in films that paid tribute to his legendary status. But Hackman never accepted. His reasoning for turning down these offers was never fully explained. Publicly, he kept it simple: he was done. But the estate documents and financial records that have surfaced suggest that his exit was planned long before the world realized it. He had begun making adjustments to his finances, selling off assets, and restructuring his estate in the late 1990s, years before he officially retired in 2004. This suggests that his decision to leave Hollywood was not a reaction to one disappointing film or a moment of frustration with the industry. It was a long-term plan, carefully executed. The documents also reinforce the fact that Hackman did not want to be part of the growing culture of Hollywood nostalgia. In an era when retired actors frequently return for reboots, sequels, or anniversary specials, Hackman was notably absent. Even when films like The French Connection or Unforgiven were celebrated as some of the greatest movies of all time, he did not participate in discussions or interviews. He had the opportunity to capitalize on his past work, but he actively chose not to. Now, with his passing, those closest to him have confirmed that this was not an accident, it was a choice. Friends and former colleagues have described him as a man who did not dwell on the past. He saw his career as a job, one that he took seriously, but did not define him. He once said in an interview, long before his retirement, that he never wanted to be the kind of actor who overstayed his welcome. He wanted to leave on his own terms, and that is exactly what he did. Even in his final years, Hackman ensured that his privacy was protected. His home in Santa Fe was designed to be secluded, offering both security and tranquility. He did not engage with the local film community, did not attend industry events, and was rarely seen in public. While some believed he would eventually break his silence, especially as he grew older, he never did. His silence was intentional, and now, with the release of his estate records, it is clear just how far he went to ensure that his final wishes were honored. The complexity of his estate's distribution has also raised new questions. With both Hackman and Arakawa passing away at the same time, legal experts are now determining how their assets will be handled. His 3 children from his first marriage are expected to inherit much of his estate, but any jointly held assets between Hackman and Arakawa may complicate the process. There is also speculation about whether Hackman arranged for charitable donations, as some of his past financial transactions suggest that he quietly contributed to causes he cared about. If such arrangements were made, they have not yet been disclosed in public filings. One of the most fascinating aspects of his estate is what is not in it. Unlike many Hollywood icons who leave behind archives of scripts, letters, and memorabilia, Hackman appears to have left very little in terms of personal items related to his career. No major collections of film props, no preserved costumes, no extensive records of his time in Hollywood. This reinforces the idea that when he left completely. He was not interested in preserving his own history or in curating his legacy. He let his films speak for themselves. As legal teams continue to handle his estate, it remains unclear if any additional revelations will emerge. Some believe that there may be private writings, letters, or personal reflections that have yet to be disclosed, while others think that Hackman likely destroyed or discarded anything that could invite speculation about his personal thoughts. If that is the case, then his plan has worked. His passing has left people with more questions than answers, exactly as he intended. Even in death, Hackman remains an enigma. His performances were some of the most intense and emotionally gripping in film history, yet the man himself was reserved, private, and detached from the Hollywood machine. His ability to control his public image, even when he was no longer actively in the industry, is a testament to his discipline and unwavering commitment to living life on his own terms. The world will continue to analyze and speculate about his choices, but one thing is certain: Hackman's approach to his career and his life after it is unlike anything Hollywood has seen before. In an era where celebrities cling to relevance, he showed that true power lies in knowing when to walk away. He left behind no scandals, no desperate attempts to reclaim fame, no unfinished projects. He left exactly as he wanted, and in doing so, he crafted an ending that was just as compelling as any of the films he starred in. Hackman's passing may have brought him back into the headlines, but soon, as he intended, the noise will settle. His films will endure, his performances will be remembered, and his name will remain one of the greatest in cinematic history. And yet, he will not be part of that conversation because that is what he always wanted. With that, we have reached the end of today's video. If you have come this far with us, be sure to check out other videos on the channel.